In the heart of the South Wales valleys, the village of Aberfan sits quietly beneath the green hills. Today, it is a place of profound silence, a scar upon the landscape that time has tried to heal but history refuses to forget. But rewind to the morning of October 21st, 1966. It was a Friday, the last day before the half-term holiday. The air was damp, a thick, clinging mist shrouded the valley, muting the sounds of the waking village. Down in the streets, mothers were buttoning coats, and children were rushing out the door, excited for the week of freedom ahead. It was a scene of perfect, heartbreaking normality. None of them knew that above them, a man-made monster was waking up. To understand this tragedy, you must understand the skyline. Aberfan was a coal town, and coal was king, but the price of coal was the waste it left behind. For years, the National Coal Board had been dumping millions of cubic yards of mining debris, shale and washings, onto the slopes of Merthyr Mountain. They called them tips. They looked like black pyramids, artificial mountains looming over the village like watchful giants. But specifically, there was tip number 7. It had been built directly over a natural spring. The water, having nowhere to go, saturated the waste from below, turning the solid rock into a ticking time bomb of liquid sludge. It stood 111 feet high, a sodden, unstable mass of death, casting a literal and metaphorical shadow over the Pantglas Junior School directly below. Disasters rarely happen without a prologue. The people of Aberfan knew the danger. They saw the dark water oozing from the foot of the tip. They watched the sludge creep closer to their backyards. Local councils and residents had written letters, pleading with the National Coal Board to stop dumping on tip number 7. They expressed fear for the safety of the school, but their voices were silenced by bureaucracy and arrogance. The officials dismissed them as alarmists. In the coal industry, production was prioritized over safety. The rain had been falling heavily for weeks in October 1966, saturating the tip further. The mountain was groaning, but the men in power refused to listen. At 7:30 a.m., the workers on top of the mountain arrived to find the peak had sunk 10 feet. But no alarm was sounded in the village below. By 9 a.m., the children of Pantglas Junior School had settled into their classrooms. They had just returned from the assembly where they sang, "All Things Bright and Beautiful." Then, at exactly 9:13 a.m., the mountain gave way. It wasn't a slide, it was a liquefaction event. A tsunami of black slurry, moving at 50 miles per hour, broke away from the hill. It carried trees, boulders, and farmhouses in its wake. Survivors recalled a noise like a low-flying jet, growing louder and louder until the sound itself became a physical force. The mist parted, and the black wave crashed down. The impact was catastrophic. The avalanche hit the Pantglas Junior School with the force of a sledgehammer. It smashed through the walls, filling classrooms with tons of viscous mud and rubble within seconds. The lights went out. The laughter stopped. In the terrifying darkness, silence fell almost instantly. 240 children were in the school. The slurry buried the back classrooms first, the junior classes. Teachers, in their final moments, threw themselves over their students, trying to shield them with their own bodies. It was an act of supreme love and futility against the weight of the mountain. The innocence of a generation was extinguished in a single breath. For a few seconds after the slide stopped, there was total silence. Then, the screaming started. Mothers, hearing the roar, ran from their homes, many without coats or shoes, clawing at the mud with their bare hands. But the most haunting sound was the whistle. The miners from the nearby colliery rushed up from the pit. They were men used to digging for coal. Now they were digging for their own children. Every few minutes, a whistle would blow, and a shout would go up. Silence. Thousands of people would freeze, straining their ears against the mud, hoping to hear a whimper, a cry, a tap, anything that signaled life. But mostly, the silence remained unbroken. As day turned to night, powerful floodlights illuminated the scene, casting long, eerie shadows over the wreckage. It looked like a war zone. The mud began to harden like concrete as it dried, making the rescue effort agonizingly slow. Firefighters, miners, parents, and volunteers formed human chains to pass buckets of debris. Hope is a cruel thing. It lingered for hours. But the last survivor, A young boy named Jeff Edwards was pulled out around 11 a.m. that morning. After that, for the rest of the day and the long, cold night that followed, they found only bodies. The realization began to settle over Aberfan like the mist had that morning. They were not a rescue team anymore, they were a recovery team. The nearby Bethania Chapel became the temporary mortuary. It was a place where faith met the ultimate test. Inside, the pews were removed to make space for the dead. One by one, the small bodies were brought in, wrapped in blankets, washed of the black coal mud, and laid out for identification. Parents were forced to walk down the rows, lifting the blankets to see if the child beneath was theirs. The toll was staggering: 144 people dead. 116 of them were children. Almost an entire generation of the village was wiped out. In some families, every single child was lost. The grief was not just individual, it was communal. A collective wound that tore the soul of the village apart. In the wake of the disaster, the anger was palpable. A tribunal of inquiry was set up to find the truth. The National Coal Board, led by Lord Robbins, initially denied any responsibility. They claimed the disaster was due to unknown geological factors. It was a lie. The inquiry found that the disaster was entirely foreseeable and preventable. The verdict was damning. The disaster was caused by bungling ineptitude by many men. Yet, despite 144 deaths, no one was prosecuted. No one lost their job. Lord Robbins even tried to use the Disaster Relief Fund, money donated by the public for the grieving families, to pay for the removal of the remaining tips. It was a final, bitter insult to the wounded community. Wales is known as the Land of Song, but for years after 1966, Aberfan stopped singing. The psychological trauma was immense. This was one of the first times that post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, was observed on a community-wide scale. Though it wasn't named that at the time, survivors suffered from survivor's guilt, wondering why they lived when their classmates died. Parents who had lost children couldn't bear to look at the children who survived. The village was frozen in time. The playgrounds were empty. The laughter was gone. The shadow of the tip had been removed physically. But mentally, it still loomed over every roof and every heart. The people of Aberfan did not suffer in silence forever. They fought back. They formed the Aberfan Disaster Fund, but had to fight the government to keep the money for the families rather than for cleaning up the coal board's mess. It took decades for the stolen money, the £150 taken from the fund to remove the tips, to be returned. It wasn't until 1997, over 30 years later, that the British government repaid the principal amount. And it wasn't until 2007 that the Welsh Assembly donated money to make up for the lost interest. It was a victory, but a hollow one. Justice delayed is justice denied. And for the parents who died of broken hearts before that day came, the apology arrived too late. Today, if you visit the site where Pantglas Junior School once stood, you will find a memorial garden. It is peaceful. The birds have returned. The tips are gone, replaced by grass and trees. But walk to the cemetery, and you will see the white arches standing in military precision, 2 rows of stone for the children who never grew up. Aberfan is a testament to the catastrophic cost of negligence, but also to the enduring power of community. We tell their story not just to mourn, but to warn, to remember that beneath the statistics and the coal dust, there were children who laughed, played, and had dreams. They are the lost generation of Aberfan, and as long as we speak their names, they are not forgotten.